mention this, is take a deep breath. Just because you've been asked to speak doesn't mean you need to start right away. Take a deep breath, gather your thoughts. It gives your audience time to gather their thoughts, for them to relax. But you have to remember, these people really want to hear what you have to say, because you're an officer in the district. You represent all the clubs, all the zones, and they want to hear what you have to say. So take a deep breath. And again, creating opportunities, being able to find those opportunities to say something, whether it's at a Lions event, one of our associate, like CLRF, California Lions Eye Research Foundation, whether it's Lions Low Vision Center, or whether it's an outside group that you're talking to about this organization. So creating opportunities, but being able to anticipate speaking opportunities. Can you think of any other ways that you might create speaking opportunities?
Has to be on the agenda. Proactively.
I'm sorry, can I
To proactively, for instance, ask to be on the agenda, put on the agenda.
Thinking under pressure. I can relate to that. I'm sure Council Chair Fuller can remember this as well. 2016, our midwinter conference. Our past council chair at the time, that was running that, had a little accident on Friday night, so he could not perform the rest of his duties for the rest of the convention. And talk about thinking under pressure, because I was next in line to take that position. He immediately came to me, and I had to read his notes and to think under pressure as to how I was going to how I was going to be able to be the lead person for the remainder of that convention. And there was a lot of pressure. But I sat down, I read through his notes that night, right after the accident happened that night, and I started writing notes to myself in the margins and that, and definitely was put in that position of thinking under pressure. Take a deep breath, boy did I. And honestly, you have to be in season and out, and that kind of was my out of season, but it made for an opportunity for me to learn to do a better job at the fact of being under pressure.
Excellent. One of the takeaways from what Nanette said was to have a comfort level. Write down some notes, jot notes. When you're going out, have a little cheat sheet on if you're a woman, you may not have pockets, so maybe in something like a pocketbook or something that you're carrying, or just have that sheet in your jacket pocket of things that you might want to make. And as a second vice district governor, you might be at a zone meeting or other events where they may ask you unexpectedly just to say a few words. So it's really important that you have the ability to anticipate these speaking situations. So some tactics for thinking quickly. One tactic is to listen carefully. What did the person running that meeting or event, what did they specifically ask you? Did they ask you to talk on one topic? But to listen carefully. And tactic 2 is to stall. And that doesn't mean negative, but you might ask for somebody to repeat a question. You might say, can you rephrase the question? I don't understand the question. But to really look for clarification. And while they're clarifying, again, go back to 1, listen carefully and see if you're really getting what that person is asking you. Which leads to tactic 3, you're going to hear this over and over, to understand your audience. At this zone meeting, again, there were past district governors, the district governor, the second vice district governor-elect, club officers. What did they want to hear? What would resonate with them in this meeting? So to understand your audience and to pick one point and to make that one point you want to make, and don't give them too much information. Ed, have you heard speakers that really have shared too much information or gone on and on?
Yes, certainly.
A lot?
More often than I would like to. Let's put it that way. When I'm listening to a speaker, I don't care how long someone goes on for, if they're on topic and they're giving useful information. It's when you get off on tangents that have nothing to do with that meeting or the subject matter.
Exactly. And one of the tactics here is to make your point clearly, but to also try to engage the audience. And how can you engage the people that you're trying to reach? Is there something, when I spoke at this Zoom meeting and I brought up about this new software, that incentivized the district governor to comment on the council chair and the initiative and how this has gone Connecticut-wide, that we're bringing in this new training software. So it's a great idea to make a point clearly, but again, as you're going to see later on in another session about team building, to get more of the team engaged in that point. So there's a number of tactics that you can utilize. Can you think of any other tactics that you might utilize to think quickly on your feet? Hillary?
Ask a question. All this, I think we alluded to this before, not just covered. It gives you time, and it's part of stalling as well, but it does a number of things. Clarification, stalling.
So in the self-introduction, there was a question. There's 3 statements, 2 truths, and a lie. Which one's the lie? It's asking people to get involved, asking to see if they're connecting with you. It's a way to really bring them into the conversation and to get them involved so that you know you're connecting. Kind of back what past district governor Dave Yadish was talking about in the communications section. So tactics, any other tactics that you can think of? Yeah.
Just expanding on the listening carefully. During the course of the meeting, make sure you really have paid attention to what's gone on throughout the meeting and you've made your notes. Then if you are called upon to speak unexpectedly, whatever you say, you might be able to tie into something that happened earlier, just to connect better with the audience.
Exactly. That listening is such an important requirement for you to have as future leaders in your district. Listen to what people are saying, because it's going to give you a pulse of your district and what people are talking about and what they're thinking about. And maybe something is not getting through. And it was like in an earlier session, somebody mentioned about new voices and not really knowing what's going on about new voices. And to clearly communicate with people about what's going on. International President's Initiative. Make sure we have diversity in our organization. So to listen carefully. So let's look at some strategies. And these are things, and we've talked about, and Council Chair mentioned one, is to ask a question, to get people involved. But there's also what's called the PREP template. Point, reason, example, point. When the zone chair asked me to get up and speak about Lions Day of the United Nations and how it went, I thought, what's the point I want to make? We had 37 Leos go from District B, Lions of Litchfield and Hartford County this year, because we had scholarships funded, so they had free transportation to go this year to that event. To have a reason, what's the reason? What's an example? and to give an example, and then to get back to the point. This was the largest number of Leos going from our district in memory from what I've been told by folks. And again, to give an example, we had 4 clubs of Leos participate. They utilized the scholarships, and we told a brief story about that. So again, what's the point you want to make? Give a reason for that point, an example, and then back to the point. So that's something you can use, and just people, remember things by acronyms. So the PREP acronym. And later on, I may ask one of you to do an example. So that's one way. Another way is to create a question and answer session, or to tell a personal story. What could that story be? Like, on my 2 truths and a lie, how did I work for a Republican and a Democrat president? How did that happen in this environment? But we relate to people and tell a personal story. Why haven't I met the current president? What's wrong with me? I've met every president since Jimmy Carter. Why haven't I met the current president? Think of something that you can use to connect with people, to tell that personal story. If you have a family situation, if you have a personal passion, like Hillary and his wife both have personal passions that have led their careers, which is just great to hear. And but if there's something that you can share, and again, your Lions in your districts, they don't know a lot about you, just like in the multiple district. When our council chair shared part of his personal life with us, we always see him so prim and proper, leading meetings, but he has a whole nother life out there that just personalizes you. And that's one of the things as officers you're going to want to do, is to be able to personalize you. With my current district governor, lights, camera, action. That's his theme. Does that quickly tell you what he's interested in? Creating peace. Laura Rose. Does that tell you what she's interested in? So again, to get that vision, to quickly be able to tell a personal story. These are just some strategies that you can use. In San Diego, there's a guy by the name of Brian Tracy, and you may have heard of Brian. He lives in Rancho Bernardo, California. And he said that 90% of people are nervous when they get up to talk in front of an audience. And he says more people fear public speaking than they fear death. More people fear public speaking than they fear death. And he says even Warren Buffett in his earlier career was afraid of public speaking. So you have to have that ability to speak in public. And these are, from Ryan, 6 fantastic tips. Again, know your audience. Make sure what you're talking about they're interested in. Keeping it short and simple. Maintain eye contact. I'm going to go back to Pam on this one. That eye contact, really, are they connecting with you? Are their eyes glazing over, or are they really focused on what you're talking about? I always like to say that positive attitude too. Don't read from your slides. And that's something that many people will say, and I've read a lot of evaluations for different organizations I belong to, and that's probably one of the worst. And as Council Chair Hillary mentioned, at FDI they say, don't read your slides, have the perfect setup. We were here at 7:30 setting things up. We were working with District Governor-elect Ev to make sure we understood how to use all the technology. Where's the whiteboard? Where's the flip chart? How does this work? How does the clicker work? Making sure that you know all these things. Getting creative, being excited. And then back to our 6 P's that we talked about, and probably proper preparation and practice, which prevents poor performance. So practice so that you have good performance. Now, when you're giving a presentation, you have more time to plan, and even when you don't have a lot of time, there's really three basic components to a presentation. You have an opening, the points you want to make, the parts of the presentation, and the closing. And it's really important that you have an opening. We're here to talk about public speaking and you. You're going to be an officer, you're going to be a second vice district governor fairly shortly. What does public speaking have to do with you? Why is it important as a skill to have in your bag of skills? And why should you enjoy doing it? So these are some from LCI, 10 tips that they've come up with. And again, read through your materials. Practice, practice, practice. Make sure you have enough material. Sometimes it's frustrating when you haven't really put together enough to talk about. I mentioned organizing your space and arranging it accordingly. Personalize a presentation. Testing your equipment, making sure everything works. One of the worst things is if somebody gets up and starts fiddling with the clicker and the clicker doesn't work. Or I'm the program chair for the Granby Men's Breakfast Club. And one time we got up there and the microphone didn't work and we didn't have a backup microphone. And I said, the first thing we're going to do is buy a backup microphone so that we always have two if the first one doesn't work for whatever reason. And it wasn't the batteries, we checked everything. We're making sure things work. Preparing to answer questions. Overcoming anxiety. And I want to talk to you about this one because I know some people just get anxious. And these are just some tips that you might think about. Pam, you mentioned deep breathing as a tip. Drink water before a presentation. And I know I went out and there happens to be these cranberry antioxidant powdered drinks out here that I put into the water. And, you know, but to drink some water before you speak, it gives you a chance to collect your thoughts. Chewing gum before you speak, but not during your speech, but before. It sometimes relieves your anxiety. Smiling. Smile, smile, smile. Let them know that you're really pleased to be there. And speaking, we were joking this morning with past District Governor Dave Yadich about how nice when he smiles. And using visualization techniques. Imagine you're delivering your session participants who are interested in smile. Give that positive image. Hopefully later, when you go home, you're going to think, wow, Dave Roberts was such an energized, happy presenter. And there's even one that they talk about calling self-massage yourself. You know, go into the men's or ladies' room and self-massage yourself just to calm down. But these are just some tips to overcome anxiety. And as Brian Tracy, the coach, mentioned, 90% of people get nervous before a presentation. So it's perfectly normal. And just like I mentioned to you in college for my first speech, my giggling, not being able to stop giggling reaction was a nervous reaction. And that's actually what the professor said. And he said, this was because of your nerves, possibly your first time getting up and giving a speech, maybe not having been as prepared as you should have been or practiced as you should have been. So he says, you have to get over your anxiety. I told you I'm going to hit it a lot of times, knowing your audience, and know what you want, what you hope to accomplish. What is that message that you want to get out to people? Maybe it's something in your governor's strategic plan. Maybe it's membership retention. Maybe it's something upcoming. You know, I know we're really excited about this new initiative in this multiple about starting a diabetes camp for children. Such a great initiative. And there's so many positive aspects about it, including getting more people involved in the multiple because of it. That could lead to member retention, member recruitment, just so many positive aspects. So, but really knowing what you hope to accomplish. Delivery techniques. Pam, I'm going to go back to you again. Eye contact is important. Make your point and stick to one person while you're making your point with eye contact. Voice and vocal expression. Don't go in there and go, I'm Second Vice District Governor Lori Ann Venison, and I'm pleased to be here today. Let them know that you're happy. Change your voice. You know, if you've got a point you want to make, emphasize that word that you want to emphasize. So vocal expression, your voice, your body movement and your gestures, show comfort. Don't just go up there and stand like I'm, you know, Second Vice District Governor-elect at Fenton, and I'm pleased to be here today. You know, move around, share, go out into the audience, as long as they can hear you. And that's a really important thing. Can they see you? Can they hear you? Make sure your audience can connect with you. So these are all types of delivery techniques, and then language usage. I know recently I heard a presentation and the speaker botched a word really poorly. And it changed my thoughts that that word, to me, was quite critical to what the point was he was trying to make. So the usage of language is important. And sometimes people may not get if you say a type of expression. So be careful sometimes with your language usage and how it's going to go over with people. Hillary, have you had an experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm processing a few of them, yeah. I mean, the mispronunciations, you know, recognize instead of recognize. I mean, the simple little things that kind of stick in my craw when I'm listening to someone. It's always good to have your language usage and your pronunciation and your, you know, and so forth.
And you actually gave a great one during your opening session. Use progress, not change. I actually wrote that in big letters on my thing here because that really stuck with me, because I know I use the word change, and I know that happened to be associated with a past president, and some people it's like running your fingers on a chalkboard. It's just, so be careful. But when you say, this is the progress we want to make in this multiple, that's such a great way of saying it, and it gets people to want to come with you to be able to do that. So again, the language and usage. We talked earlier about is it good or bad to practice in front of a mirror? I like to practice in front of a mirror. And I told you after I saw my video from Faculty Development Institute, I got nervous about controlling my hands, about controlling my speech and how fast or slow I talk, about modulating your voice level. You don't always think about that when you're speaking, but doing it in front of a mirror, you can practice in front of a spouse or a friend, if they'll be kind. So I know my kids get tired of hearing me practicing or listening for me. The little ones like it, but the older ones are like, oh, I can't do this. And then videoing, that to me is the best way to do it. It gives you a true sense, because you can't hide in a video. And I know when people used to record me doing interviews on TV, and I go, that's what I sound like, that's what I look like. You know, it gives you that feel. And I know in one interview I was sitting in this chair, and it was the worst. So it taught me how to sit up straight when you're on TV, where to look, you know, not to look like at the camera, but to look at the interviewer. So, you know, videotaping yourself is a really good thing to try to do. Now, I have another quote, and it goes like this. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. So I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. And that's going to lead to an exercise. And this quote was by Confucius, the Chinese philosopher. And what we're going to do for this exercise, I'm just going to ask one of you to participate in this. And I'm going to, I think, ask Ed. And he says, yes. Or pick a number.
Uh-oh. It's like a magic trick.
Yep. pick a number. What's the number?
3.
Okay, number 3. So that equates to the most important responsibility of the district governor team is. And what I would like you to do for the next 5 minutes is pull together a brief speech, no more than a couple minutes, and utilizing one of these techniques, either the questioning, the personal story, or the prep. And go through that and share with us how you would do that. So, do you think you can do that?
Sure.
And do you understand what the task for this activity is?
Gotcha.
Excellent. So let's take, for the rest of you, let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then when we come back, and then after Zone Chair Ed gives his presentation, we'll just give pointers and anything that we see. Is that okay? Excellent. So let's take a 5-minute break. So we'll reconvene then at 7:15.